we have seen these standard annotations like yeah, positive, not blank and stuff, but you can also write your own annotation to validate your own stuff. So we will have a look at that, how this works.
Nice.
So with Hibernate validators, we could also say like we want to check if this year is larger than, let's say, 1,000. So you would think, hey, min would be cool. But if you try that, and if you check the docs, probably it's also here for big decimal, big integer, byte, short, int, long, but not for Java years. Java years are special. So it says unexpected type, no validator could be found for min validating type year. So it's just not implemented.
Okay.
So we can add this. And let's actually build it a bit back what we had before, so we get the nice exceptions without the mapper. Just checking. So what we need to do for this is we need to customize the validator setup. And we can do this by creating a bean, the min year validator. So we need to actually create two beans. One is the actual validator that handles the validation. We can start with that. And that's a constraint validator. It has two types. The annotation, for which it should be applied, and the type for which it should be applied. Okay? So we can say we have the min annotation, and it's for year, handling years. And now we can get the isValid method. We can remove these question marks because they are only because it's generated from Java code. So in here we need to check it. I add this back because you can imagine you can have like a min or it can be null. That could be allowed.
Okay.
As we saw, checking not null is a separate check, so we can like not null add this additionally, or we were here, like here. If it's not null allowed, it can also be that you allow it to be null, or if it's not null, then it has to be higher than. So what we do is if it's null, just return true, still valid. So this is a Kotlin syntax. In case it's null, do this. Usually you use that like val something equals. Maybe you have seen it from that perspective. And now this is no longer optional. But you can also just use it like that. And afterwards, we check value here. No. Then IntelliJ does not show it correctly, but it's no longer nullable. You can see it by this. We can access it directly with the point. So now we need to check what should be larger than. We need to get the value from the annotation. Like this 1,000 here. And this is actually not, I don't like it, but I would have liked to just get the validation here, the annotation. But actually we can override an initialize function. And in here we get the annotation. So we just say this constraint equals this. We create this member and we say it's late in it because this will be called
on this side of the monitor, it sounds a little bit that you're angry because you're.
I'm hitting my
Yeah.
my enter key so much. Yeah, I'm sorry. I
Okay.
hope it's not too
Just
bad in the
making
stream.
sure you're not angry, right?
No, I'm
Okay.
not angry. That's like my relaxing move.
Okay.
I'm actually a secret tester for keyboards, so I try to really go on the maximum. No. So we can get the constraint annotation, and it's the value that we've set there. Yeah, so maybe call this here.
What's a min type? What?
This
Oh,
here?
that's the
annotation.
constraint. Okay.
That's the annotation
itself.
actually.
Okay.
So
So
you
if
see,
can you put something custom in there?
yes, we can
Okay.
also create our own annotation. So let's do this first.
Yeah.
And then customize it further.
Mhm.
So there's now this is a bean, or must be a bean. So we need to annotate it with
What do you mean? Beam or bean? What?
bean, like a
Bohne.
yeah,
Okay.
like a vegetable. Yeah, that's what you call the injectable stuff.
Okay.
In Java Enterprise. So normally you can make it application scoped if we don't use the initialize method.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not application scope, means there's only one instance of this class in the whole application. But obviously we have some internal state in here that is not applications wide true. It's
but
depending
this
on
wouldn't be an error, right?
This wouldn't be an error directly, but you would, if you have two calls at the same time, then they mix up.
Okay.
Because instead of, in comparison to Node.js or so, Quarkus is actually multi-threaded. So you will have concurrency.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
In Node.js, you don't really have concurrency if you don't use thread pools or so explicitly. So you don't run into these issues as likely. But here you directly have an issue.
Okay.
So instead, we need to make it dependent. So it depends on the scope of where it is used. When it would be used in an application scoped context, and the min thing would be application scoped, then Quarkus would make it application scoped in that moment. And when it's in a request scope context, like we have it in our resource, because here this object is request scoped, then Quarkus makes it request scoped, and it's depending on the request.
Okay.
So this should be our validator. Now we also need to tell Hibernate Validator that this is a thing, that it exists, and that it should be used, and for what. Unfortunately, it doesn't know this automatically. Sometimes Quarkus can already do this for you. In this case, you still have to do it manually. Maybe that's something that comes in the future. So what we can do is we can create another bean. Customizer. You might notice from the JSON serializer customizer, it's basically the same principle. And we have a validator factory customizer. And we need to implement the method. And in here we create this constraint mapping. Create constraint mapping. So this is boilerplate. You can read it in the documentation. Constraint mapping. Constraint definition. So now we need to say for which annotation. We can say if we want to include the existing validators or not. What this is, I will include it, because if we say false, then we throw away the existing ones. So that is, for example, how you could change the email validator for good. by removing the existing validation.
Okay.
If you
So
make
it will
this false,
first run into the existing one, and then it will run through yours.
yeah. So basically, you just if you set this to true, you just add another one.
Okay. Okay.
If you set it to false, then it throws away all the existing ones for this annotation, and only yours exist.
Okay.
And then you can say validated by, and this is our min-year validator. And we need to set this to the configuration, add mapping, constraint mapping. Yeah. So.
And this will work now? So you don't have to do anything else. What you do is you have an application scoped, and you have a method for it, and then it will automatically work.
Yeah, because
nice.
Quarkus just gets at the start, it gets all of the implementations of this interface. And for those, it runs this customize function, hands in this base validation configuration, which it creates internally with all the existing validators. And yeah, afterwards it's configured. And it's application scope because this exists only once in the application. Yeah.
Nice.
That's hopefully it. Yay! And we have must be a date in the past or in the present. We haven't even checked our thing, but it's not exploded, so that's already good. So must be greater than or equal to 1,000.
Nice.
Okay. So this is how you can recycle or extend an existing annotation.